I brought out the ceramic mugs Declan gave me 3 Christmases ago, back when he still visited without warning. One for him, one for Tara. I poured the coffee slowly, hoping the clink of spoons and sugar would fill the space that used to hold conversation. They sat at the table like guests at a job interview, formal, too nice rehearsed. Declan reached into his leather bag. "We wanted to stop by because it's a good time to start thinking about long-term stuff," he said, sliding a folder toward me. "Standard forms, just estate planning." I nodded, though my hands didn't move. He opened the folder for me. "It's easier if I have power of attorney," he continued. "That way I can manage everything if anything ever happens." Tara leaned in voice soft, like fabric softener. "You don't need a lawyer, Mar. These are just precautions. You trust your own son, don't you?" She smiled as if the answer had only one option. I adjusted my reading glasses. The papers were printed neatly, a stack of legalese dressed in concern. My name, Marlette Quinn, underlined 3 times in blue. Directly below it, a line for my signature. I didn't reach for the pen. "Oh, and just sign the back page too," Declan said quickly. "That one handles the house." I turned the page. Handles was a polite way to say transfers. The wording wasn't kind. It was final. I scanned the margins the way I used to scan student records, looking for what didn't belong, what wasn't said aloud. I smiled gently. "I'd like to read this over more carefully, if that's all right." Declan blinked. "Sure, yeah, of course." Tara tilted her head. "Just don't overthink it." I nodded again, folding the papers and placing them beside the sugar jar. I refilled my mug, stirring slowly. They chatted about the traffic. I asked about the dog. Everyone played their part. But I didn't sign. Not yet. That night after they left, I sat alone at the kitchen table and opened the folder again. They left in a hurry, saying they had dinner reservations, though Tara barely touched her coffee. Declan gave me a quick hug, one hand still on his phone. The folder stayed on my counter unopened again, until the dishwasher hummed and the porch light flicked on automatically. I brought it to the kitchen table and sat down with my reading glasses and a yellow notepad. Old habits when I used to proofread student handbooks line by line came back like muscle memory. But this wasn't about commas and clarity. This was about control. The pages were tidy clean, filled with neutral language and complicated rights. But beneath the calm words was a current I didn't like. I highlighted 3 sections. On the 3rd page in small print was something about authority to manage and dispose of assets. No restriction, no clause for consent. I opened the cabinet above the fridge and pulled down the old green file box. The latch still stuck. Inside were the documents that built this life, the property deed in my name, the updated homeowner's policy, the life insurance I never canceled even after Harold passed. Everything was still mine. I found the copy of my medical directive and reread it. Willa, my niece, was still listed as my emergency contact. I wondered if she even remembered. The papers Declan gave me had no room for doubt. They weren't for emergencies. They were for full transfer. I stared at the legalese until the words blurred. Then I picked up the phone. Gloria answered on the 3rd ring. I hadn't spoken to her in months. We used to teach together. She was always the sharp one, with budgets, retirement accounts, things I only half understood. I told her what Declan said. Told her about the documents. There was a pause on the line. No gasp, no shock. Just her voice, calm and direct. "If they're pushing this fast, you'd better slow it down." After we hung up, I left everything on the table and went to bed. In the morning, I drove to the records office downtown. The records office was quiet, tucked inside a building I hadn't been to since renewing my homestead exemption years ago. A young clerk with shaggy hair typed in my address while I waited at the counter, clutching my bag just a little tighter than usual. He squinted at the screen. "Funny," he murmured, tapping a few more keys. "Looks like someone already requested a title transfer inquiry. About 2 weeks ago." My stomach dropped. Who, he checked. Declan Quinn. I thanked him and walked out with a printout. My hands didn't shake until I reached the car. At home, I set the folder beside the green box and reopened Declan's documents. This time, I didn't skim. I studied. Page 5, bottom corner. A line I missed before grantor authorizes the agent to handle any and all real property matters without further notice or approval. It sounded efficient. It meant permanent. The rest of the document was full of similar language phrases that sounded routine but carried sharp edges. Unilateral discretion, immediate authority, no mention of co-signers, no mention of me. The clause didn't say I could choose to let him help. It said I already had. I leaned back and closed my eyes. Tara's voice echoed from last Thanksgiving. Honestly, people who don't read the fine print deserve what they get. She had laughed. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. I opened my eyes and scanned the forms again. My name appeared on every page, bold and centered, but nowhere did it say what I wanted, what I chose. It only said what Declan would be allowed to do. I didn't remember raising a child who needed legal shortcuts to take what didn't belong to him, but maybe that's what happens when you believe kindness will be enough. I closed the folder, tucked it back inside its envelope, and placed it gently in the drawer beneath my desk. Then I looked up a name I hadn't said aloud in years. Yates and Bramble Attorneys at Law. They still had an office across town. The office hadn't changed much, same frosted glass door, same carved wood desk, though the receptionist was new and half the age of the building. Mr. Yates came out to greet me himself, just like he always had. I handed him a small tin of cookies. He chuckled, saying I hadn't changed, and I told him I hoped the same could be said for him with his eyesight, at least. We settled in. He pulled out a yellow highlighter. I pulled out the folder. I watched his face as he read. The smile left. His brow creased by page 2. By page 6, he put down the papers and folded his hands. If you'd signed this, he said quietly, your son would have had full access to every asset you own. Your home, your bank accounts, your medical decisions, everything. I nodded. Once. He could sell your house without even telling you. Still, I didn't flinch. He leaned back. Do you want to take action? Yes, I said. Not out of fear, out of clarity. Within the hour, we signed a temporary hold on the title of my property, making it untouchable without formal consent. He helped me rewrite my medical directive, reaffirming my niece Willa as the only person authorized to make health decisions if I couldn't. He also began drafting a notice of revocation for any unauthorized filings under my name. I left his office with a neat folder and a feeling I hadn't had in weeks steadiness. But I wasn't done. Sitting in my car, I scrolled through my contacts. I found the number for Carla Monroe, an estate attorney Gloria once mentioned during our teaching days. I hadn't spoken to her in over a decade, but I remembered the way she talked about her clients, like they were her own family. I dialed. This wasn't about drama or revenge. It was insurance. And I wasn't going to wait for the house to burn before checking the locks. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a security alert from my front porch camera. I hadn't planned to check the app that night. It was habit more than suspicion. But when I opened the feed there, it was an alert marked Monday 6th, 42 p.m. The camera caught him pacing on the porch, hands in his pockets, back and forth like a man rehearsing something. He didn't knock, didn't even try the bell, just leaned forward and looked through the window as if expecting someone else to be home. Then he left. I stared at the clip in silence. The timestamp matched the same evening I told him I wasn't ready to sign. I forwarded the footage to both Mr. Yates and Carla Monroe. Carla called back within the hour. Let's begin logging all unannounced visits, she said. And keep your doors locked. I already had. 2 days later, The next alert came from my bank. A flagged login attempt, someone trying to access my online account from an IP address located in Allentown, Declan City. I didn't call him. I didn't accuse anyone. I printed the notice, circled the location, and added it to the folder marked Defense. Then I made tea, loose leaf, 1 sugar. My hands didn't tremble. This wasn't the kind of fear that needed screaming. It was the kind that built walls and took notes. Quiet fear, focused fear. I had thought that being his mother meant protecting him at all costs. But maybe the cost had grown too high. He used to run to me with scraped knees and stories from science class. Now he lurked outside my window, waiting for silence. I didn't cry. I filed the tea receipt with the others, tracking the hours, the incidents, the small and steady erosion of trust. They thought they were moving quietly, but I had learned how to listen to quiet. That Friday, I called and invited them to dinner. Nothing formal, just family. I set 3 plates on the table and made room for 2 more. They arrived right on time, carrying practiced smiles and a bottle of wine I didn't open. Declan wore a pale green polo and greeted me like everything was fine. Tara kissed my cheek and complimented the roast before I even carved it. We made small talk. They asked about the garden. I asked about Tara's job. No one mentioned the documents. I served dinner on the good plates. We ate slowly. I let the quiet stretch between courses. Declan refilled his glass twice. Tara picked at her salad but said nothing. By the time I brought out the cobbler, I saw them both start to relax. That's when Carla and Mr. Yates stepped into the dining room from the hallway. Declan froze, fork midair. Tara's head turned so fast she nearly dropped her napkin. I thought it might be helpful if they were here while we review the papers, I said, setting down the dessert. The silence that followed was not awkward. It was exact. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I pulled out the folder. First, I laid down the original deed to my home, stamped recorded mine. Next, I placed the altered draft submitted to the title office without my consent. It bore my name, but not my writing. Then, the small USB recorder. This is from our last phone call, I said, where you both mentioned this was just a formality. Tara reached for her glass, but missed. Declan's face had lost all color. No one moved. I let the silence do what my voice no longer needed to. Years of parenting had taught me that words matter, but timing speaks louder. Mr. Yates sat beside me, flipping open his notes. Carla remained standing. We can go through it, line by line, I offered. They didn't respond. I took a bite of cobbler. It was still warm. The next morning, Carla filed a freeze notice on my estate. 2 days after the dinner, Carla and I met again, this time in her office early morning before the phones started ringing. The folder I handed her held everything: the title, insurance policies, bank summaries, and the most recent documentation from Yates. I'd spent the weekend organizing it into neat piles. By lunchtime, the living trust was in place. The house, the savings, even my car fully transferred into the trust, protected from any unilateral action. No signature but mine, and the person I named as co-trustee could touch it now. That person was Willa. I hadn't spoken to her in nearly a year. Work had kept her busy. Life had kept me quieter. But when I called, her voice lit up like it always had when she was small, when I used to mail her birthday cards with crisp 20s folded inside. A trust, she said, stunned. Me. You're thoughtful, responsible. And you don't expect anything, I told her. That's exactly who should be in charge. There was a long pause, and then she began to cry. Not loud, just soft, like relief had cracked open something she hadn't named. I never expected this, she whispered. I never expected to need it, I replied. That evening, Declan sent an email. It was long, full of phrases like I just wanted to help, and I thought we had an understanding. There were hints of guilt, some subtle blame, and a final paragraph that read like a script, how families should stick together, how I was misinterpreting everything. He didn't mention the altered document, or the visit to the records office, or the login attempt from his apartment. I didn't reply. I forwarded the message to Carla and Mr. Yates. Subject line, record for file. Then I closed my laptop, poured myself a glass of water, and sat on the porch with my old fleece blanket. The sky was turning, and in the morning, I had one more meeting, this time with Declan. He'd asked to see me in person. He chose a cafe downtown, the kind with reclaimed wood tables and music too low to recognize. I arrived 5 minutes early. He showed up late, hair damp, no coat. He sat across from me without ordering a thing. I already had my tea. Chamomile, no sugar. I just wanted what was fair. He said, not meeting my eyes. Then you should have asked, I replied, placing the folded paper on the table between us. His fingers hovered over it, hesitant. When he finally opened it, his mouth tightened. A formal cease and desist, filed, recorded, and enforceable. It outlined everything: unauthorized document submissions, attempted access to protected financial accounts, and false representation of legal authority. He didn't speak. I watched his throat move as he swallowed hard. I don't hate you, Declan, I said quietly. But I won't be vulnerable around you again. He looked up then. That same look he used to give me when he got caught sneaking out of class. Shame edged with disbelief. I didn't fill the silence. He stood slowly, folded the paper, and tucked it into his pocket like it might vanish if he didn't crumple it. Then he walked out without a word. I stayed. I let the heat of the tea warm my palms. I didn't feel triumphant, just settled. The cafe buzzed back to life around me. Dishes clinking, a woman at the counter laughing with the barista. Normal things. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't open either. Some doors don't need slamming to stay closed. I finished my tea, placed a 5 on the saucer, and took one last look out the window before walking to the car. Back home, I had a message from Carla, waiting. The trust had been finalized, all filings complete, emergency contacts updated. There was nothing left for him to take, nothing left for me to hand over. That night, I pulled out a blank sheet of paper and began drafting something new. I spread a clean sheet of paper on the kitchen table, smoothing the edges the way I used to when helping students write their scholarship essays. The house was quiet, except for the faint tick of the wall clock. I picked up my pen and wrote his name at the top, Declan. What followed came slowly at first, then all at once, sentences that had been sitting inside my chest for years, waiting for a place to land. I raised you to lead, not to steal. I gave without asking. You took without hesitation. I paused, letting the ink settle. The words didn't sting as I expected. They felt factual, like notes, written after a long meeting, clear, necessary, without theatrics. I kept writing not to accuse, but to understand my own side of the story. I taught you that responsibility mattered. Somewhere along the way, you decided it only mattered when someone else carried it. I stopped again, reading it over. It wasn't angry. It wasn't cold. It was simply the truth I couldn't say out loud without losing myself in the process. When the page was full, I folded it once, then again, creasing the paper with the edge of my thumb. I didn't put it in an envelope. I placed it in the top drawer of my desk beside old keys, warranty cards, and 2 unused stamps. It wasn't meant to be sent. It wasn't a message. It was a marker. Something to keep me from rewriting history in gentler colors. I sat back for a moment, letting the quiet settle again, softer this time. Then I pulled out another folder. This one blank, except for a notary's card, clipped to the inside pocket. I began outlining the details for a new will, one written with clear eyes, steady hands, and no room for assumptions. Not a reaction, a correction. I listed the trust first, then the house, then the accounts. I wrote Willa's name without hesitation. I left space to add a few small notes. Later things only she would understand. By the time I finished the preliminary draft, the sun had dipped low behind the backyard fence. In the morning, I would take it all to Carla for final review. The morning light comes in gently now. I don't flinch at knocks or unexpected calls. The tomatoes are coming in well this year, firm, smooth-skinned, sweet. I water them early before the heat creeps in. The lavender by the fence is taller than last summer. I let it grow wild. The new mailbox is locked stainless steel set just inside the gate. It clicks shut with a satisfying finality. The driveway gate hums quietly when it opens and closes. Remote-controlled, no more open access. No signs. No confrontations. Just boundaries. A few weeks ago, I joined the neighborhood advisory board. It's nothing dramatic, just monthly meetings at the library and conversations about sidewalks and lighting. But it's something. Something that reminds me I'm still part of the world, not just watching it. I made a donation to a legal protection fund for seniors last week. Carla helped me root it anonymously. She smiled when I told her it wasn't about justice, it was about armor. I don't tell anyone about the trust, or the cease and desist, or the dinner with lawyers. That part of the story isn't for neighbors or board meetings. It's private, and it stays there. The phone rang this morning. My bank just confirming my multi-factor settings and security contacts. Yes, I said clear and steady. Everything looks correct, and it did. No gaps. No loopholes. No more paper trails leading straight through me. I made myself tea and watched the wind shift across the trees. The kind of morning that doesn't ask for anything. I didn't need a dramatic ending. I just needed distance and a clear view. The past wasn't erased. It was contained. The danger acknowledged, but no longer circling. I walked back inside and placed the final signed documents in the safe behind the closet wall, labeled sealed complete. Then I opened the window just a little wider and went back to tending what grows.